It's crazy, right? The business world, it's like we're constantly adding more and more spinning plates to our act, just hoping we don't drop everything. You bring in a new system, update software, even just shifting around team members. Each one's a new plate spinning, and any one of them could throw the whole balance off.
And that's not all, right? Because any of those wobbly plates could have some pretty serious security implications, too. That's what we're diving into today.
Exactly. And that's where I guess this whole concept of change management comes in. But honestly, it sounds a little bit like, stuffy corporate speak to me. So break it down. What are we really talking about here? And why is it so important for keeping our systems safe and sound?
Think about it like this. You're renovating your house, right? You wouldn't just start tearing down walls without some kind of plan. You'd want blueprints. You'd want to know where everything's going.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, change management, especially when we talk about IT, it's kind of like having those blueprints for any big change you're making in your systems, upgrading servers, new software, anything like that. It forces you to think through all the potential consequences, good and bad. And a big part of that is thinking about security.
Right, okay. So it's less about endless meetings and more about having a clear plan before we make any big changes to our tech setup.
Absolutely. And one of the key players in that planning process, especially for larger companies, is something called the Change Advisory Board, or the CAB.
The CAB.
Yeah, basically, they act like the security inspectors for all your big tech projects. They're the ones who scrutinize every change, every proposal, and ask those tough questions. Hey, is this new system really going to improve things? But hang on, could it also accidentally open up security holes we haven't even thought about?
Okay, so the CAB is like a filter, trying to catch those potential security problems before they turn into actual disasters.
Exactly. They're looking out for those unintended consequences.
And that's really what we're getting at today, right? Why having a structured, deliberate approach to change management is so crucial for keeping our systems secure in a world where the threats are always changing, right?
That's the heart of it.
Okay, so let's walk through it. Say there's a change on the horizon. What's the first step? Where does this whole process begin?
What usually starts with somebody realizing, hey, we need to make a change. Maybe they need something to be more efficient, or maybe there's a new regulation they have to comply with, or maybe they found some new cool technology.
Right, right.
So they put together this formal request. They lay out exactly what they want to change, why they want to change it, and even some initial ideas about how they think the change should happen.
So we're not just talking about like a casual suggestion in a meeting.
No, this is a documented, thought-out proposal
Yeah.
that really kicks off the process.
Okay, so the proposal's on the table. What happens next?
That's when it goes out to all the stakeholders, right? All the different people who would be affected by this change. That could be other departments, the people who would actually be using this new system or technology, and really importantly, the security teams.
Makes sense. So getting their input early on can help to iron out any potential wrinkles before they become big problems.
Exactly. The security team, for example, if someone's proposing a new video conferencing platform, they'd want to look at how it handles encryption, how it stores data, all of that, right from the get-go.
Right. Get ahead of those security issues.
Absolutely. So once all the stakeholders have had their say, the CAB really steps in. They review the whole proposal, the business reasons behind it, the potential impact, the financial side of things, and then they make the call, approve it, reject it, or ask for some modifications.
Oh.
If it gets the thumbs up, then that change, it's carefully documented every step of the way. That creates this record of what's going to happen, lets everyone involved track its progress. It's a bit like getting building permits before you start construction, right? It keeps everyone on the same page and helps to catch potential risks early on.
Okay, so the plan is approved, it's all documented. But who's actually in charge of making sure this change happens the right way? And of course, making sure it's secure.
That's where the idea of ownership comes in. In change management, there's always someone, an individual or a team, who's ultimately responsible for seeing that change through successfully.
Okay, so like a project manager for the change itself.
Yeah, it could be. Like a department head who's pushing for this new software for their team, or a project manager overseeing a system upgrade. But when we're talking about changes with big security implications, it often falls to the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer.
So the CISO isn't just the person who comes in after a security breach to clean up the mess.
No, not at all. They're actively involved in managing change to prevent those breaches from happening in the first place. Clear ownership, it means clear accountability.
Right, makes sense. So the CISO or someone on their team, they'd be the ones making sure that all the security boxes are ticked, that everything is done by the book.
Exactly. For instance, if you're implementing a new customer database, the security owner would be responsible for making sure the data is encrypted, access controls are set up properly, and that you've got ongoing security monitoring in place.
Yeah.
It's about having someone who owns that security aspect from start to finish.
Okay, we've got the plan. We know who's in charge. But you mentioned stakeholders earlier, and it sounds like it's a much wider net than just the people who will be directly using the new system, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Stakeholders. That's anyone who has an interest in how the company operates and the results it delivers. It's not just the shareholders, it's the employees thinking about their jobs and the tools they use. The suppliers who rely on the company to be stable. The creditors. Banks who have a financial stake in it. Even government and regulatory bodies, making sure you're playing by the rules.
So a seemingly small change, like switching to a different email provider, that could ripple out and affect not just the people using it every day, but the IT guys supporting it, maybe even the legal department if there's data privacy concerns, even marketing if it changes how they communicate.
Exactly. You got it. And managing all those different expectations and needs, it's a big deal for the company's success and its reputation. Getting stakeholders involved early on, it builds trust and makes things run smoother.
So better to get everyone's input up front than to deal with a bunch of complaints and problems down the road.
Oh, absolutely. Now, this brings us to something we touched on before, impact analysis.
Right, impact analysis, trying to figure out all the potential ways a change could affect the organization. And from a security standpoint, that means what? What kind of questions are we asking?
Well, the big one is, how could this change impact the security of our systems and data? We're talking about confidentiality, integrity, availability, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, so for example, if we're moving all our data to a new cloud platform, we're not just thinking about the technical aspects of the move.
Right. You're also looking at the security risks, like data breaches during the transfer, making sure that new platform is actually secure, figuring out how to set up access controls. It's about thinking ahead and spotting those vulnerabilities before they can be exploited.
Okay, so we've analyzed the impact, we've identified the risks. How do we know if the security measures we've put in place are actually going to work?
That's where testing comes in. Big time. Anytime you're putting in new security controls or making a significant change to an existing system, you got to test it before you go live.
Right, it's like you wouldn't release a new product without testing it first, right?
Exactly. Think of it like a dress rehearsal before the big show. For example, if you've got a new set of firewall rules to block malicious traffic, you don't just turn them on and cross your fingers.
Right.
You simulate attacks in a controlled environment. You see if those rules actually work. You make sure they're not blocking legitimate traffic. You want to be confident that your security measures are going to do their job in the real world.
Makes sense. But what if, even with all the planning and testing, something still goes wrong after a change is implemented? What's the plan B?
That's where a backup plan comes in. It's your safety net. It's a set of procedures that tell you how to revert a system back to its previous stable state if things go sideways. So, for example, if a security patch causes a critical application to crash, your backup plan tells you exactly how to uninstall that patch and get things running smoothly again. It minimizes downtime and reduces the window of vulnerability.
So it's like having an undo button for major IT changes that don't go as planned.
That's a great way to put it. It's all about recovering quickly and minimizing the damage if something unexpected happens. Now, to try and minimize those unexpected things, particularly when you're dealing with security updates or major changes, you often use something called a maintenance window.
A maintenance window, is that like those scheduled downtime notices I get from software companies?
Yeah, exactly. It's a specific time frame, usually during off-peak hours when most people aren't using the systems. That's set aside for implementing changes or updates.
Okay, so it minimizes disruption and gives the IT team the space to do their work carefully.
Precisely. Now, when those changes are happening, it's crucial that everyone involved is following a clear set of instructions.
So there's no room for guesswork or improvisation?
Not when it comes to critical systems. That's where standard operating procedures or SOPs come in. Think of an SOP as a step-by-step guide or a recipe book for carrying out complex tasks.
So there would be an SOP for something like updating antivirus definitions on all the company's computers?
Absolutely. It outlines exactly how to do it, what to check afterward, who to notify if there's a problem. SOPs help to ensure consistency and reduce the chance of human error, which is a big deal when it comes to security.
Right. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into some of the technical aspects here. You mentioned allow lists and deny lists earlier. Can you unpack those a bit?
Sure. An allow list, sometimes called a whitelist, it's all about explicit permission. It says only these specific things are allowed. Everything else is blocked. So, for example, a firewall might have an allow list of IP addresses that are allowed to connect to internal servers, or an application control tool might have an allow list that specifies exactly which programs users are allowed to run. Anything that's not on the list, denied.
So it's like a very exclusive club. Only those on the list get in. What about deny lists?
A deny list or a block list, it works the opposite way. It's a list of things that are specifically prohibited.
Okay, so everything is allowed unless it's on that deny list.
Exactly. It's like a bouncer at a club who has a list of people who aren't allowed in. Now, both allow lists and deny lists, they need to be managed carefully. And that's where change management comes back in. If you need to add something to an allow list or block something on a deny list, that change needs to go through the proper channels, get reviewed and approved, just like any other change.
Right, to make sure you're not accidentally opening up any security holes.
Precisely. And this leads us to another important concept: restricted activities.
Restricted activities. What are we talking about here?
Think of it as actions that, if they're not done with proper authorization and oversight, could create vulnerabilities or cause some serious problems.
Okay, so like what? Give me some examples.
Well, imagine an employee installing software they downloaded from who knows where onto their company computer, or someone tinkering with server settings without going through the proper channels, or accessing sensitive databases without a legitimate reason.
Right, so all actions that could potentially compromise security if they're not controlled.
Exactly. And that's where strong change management processes are crucial. You need clear policies, technical controls, and a system for reviewing and approving any exceptions.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about planning, impact analysis, testing, backup plans, SOPs, allow lists, deny lists, restricted activities. Phew. It sounds like this can get pretty complicated. How do we keep track of all of this and make sure nothing falls through the cracks?
That's where good documentation comes in. Having a detailed record of every stage of a change, the requests, the approvals, the implementation steps, test results, the backup plan, all of it. It keeps things transparent, it ensures accountability, and it helps everyone understand what happened, who did it, and why.
So we're not just documenting the initial request, we're keeping a log of the whole process every step of the way.
Exactly. And there are some key best practices to keep in mind here. One is regularly updating diagrams, things like network topology diagrams and system architecture diagrams. They give you a visual map of your IT environment so you can see how everything connects and where the potential weak points are.
Right. If you don't have an accurate map of your digital landscape, how can you defend it?
Exactly. Another crucial thing is keeping policies and procedures up to date. As your system's technologies evolve, your internal rules need to evolve too.
So, for example, if you implement a new multi-factor authentication system, you wouldn't just install it and hope people figure it out.
No way. You need to document how it works, update your security policy to mandate its use, and provide clear instructions to your employees. And finally, our sources talk about the importance of version control.
Version control, isn't that something software developers use?
It is, but it's not just for code. You can use it for all kinds of digital assets like configuration files, system documentation, even policy documents.
So it's like having a history of all the changes made to a document, so you can see who made them, when, and why.
Exactly. It's great for accountability, it helps prevent unauthorized changes, and it gives you a way to revert back to a previous version if something goes wrong. It's a must-have for security.
Okay, so let's wrap things up. What are the key takeaways here about the relationship between change management and security?
Well, it's clear that having a well-structured and well-executed change management process is absolutely essential for maintaining a strong security posture.
It's not just about efficiency or keeping things organized.
Oh, no, it's about protecting your systems and your data. And it's an ongoing process. It requires constant attention and a meticulous approach to everything from planning and risk assessment to testing and documentation. And remember, even seemingly routine tasks like system restarts need to be handled with a security-first mindset.
And it's not just about managing changes to new technologies. You've also got to keep an eye on those legacy applications and understand how all your systems depend on each other. It's a lot to juggle, but the stakes are high.
They really are.
So for our listeners out there, think about this. We've been talking about how organizations use change management to bolster their security, but what about your own personal digital life? You're constantly installing new apps, updating your devices, changing your privacy settings. What if you applied some of these same principles to your own tech habits?
Interesting.
Think about it. What if you considered the potential security implications before you just click install on that new app? What if you tested out new software in a safe environment before you put it on your main device? It's an interesting thought experiment.
It is. It makes you realize that a lot of these principles, they can apply on a personal level too.
Exactly. And that's something for everyone to think about. All right, that's all the time we have for today, but as always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.